Hello and welcome to Securing Your Peace of Mind and Your Mobile App while giving developers back their happy coding time. I'm your host today, Mike Vizard, and this presentation is brought to you by Erdeto. There will be 3 polls today, 1 early, 2 late. We encourage you to pay attention to those because we want your feedback and your expertise. I also encourage you to find the Q&A buttons because we have a lot of good expertise here today and we want you to avail yourselves of that as much as possible. And finally, there will be 4 $25 gift cards at the end of the presentation, so hang out to the end to see who wins that. Our first presenter today is Andrew Hoyt. He's Principal Software Engineer for Irdeto. There will be no slides today. It's all code, and Andrew, take it from here.
Lovely. Hey, thanks a lot, Mike, and thanks to Security Boulevard for giving us the opportunity to have this conversation. So yeah, to all you out there in webinar land, happy holidays. Hopefully you guys are all staying safe out there. I know I am coming at you from my home. You can see my Halloween decorations are still up, so I'm ahead of the times here. But basically, I'm here with a couple of colleagues of mine. So I've got Hamad Ahmed from the Ottawa office. He's the product owner for Trusted Software, and I've got Catherine Chambers, also the Ottawa office, and she's the product manager for Trusted Software. And we're here to talk to you a little bit about a new product that Erdeto has launched. And basically, if you guys had attended the previous webinar that we did through Security Boulevard, you might have a little bit of background, a little bit more background than some others might. So I want to give you guys a bit of a recap of that first webinar, because this one sort of follows on the heels of that one. And for those of you who watched the previous one, you might remember that, yes, I am a principal software engineer for Erdeto. I helped build some of our software protection tools, and I help make use of those tools to protect people's source code, right? Because that's what Erdeto does. We make it hard for reverse engineers to steal intellectual property, to develop exploits against source code. But typically, and this is what I've been doing for most of my career, is we use those tools on enterprise level desktop applications for the largest tech companies in the world. And we're recently branching out into sort of the mobile space. So I'm not really a mobile developer. These two with me on the call certainly are. So what I'd love to hear from Catherine to start off is just a little bit about what Trusted Software is, what it represents, how it works, and then we can get to a few more interesting questions as well.
Sure, thanks, Andrew. Yeah, so I mean, Trusted Software is a fully automatic cloud service for automatically applying application security to mobile apps. It doesn't impact the way you develop your app. You can develop your app however you like. You can use the languages you like. You can use the frameworks you like. And when you're done, you upload it to the service, and we apply automatically some of those great protections that you were talking about. We do this because if you watch the first webinar, we've invested heavily in ML models that help model the way people should think about security when they're securing mobile apps. And then we use those models to cleverly apply some of those code protection techniques that you know so well, Andrew.
Yeah, so those code protection techniques, like I say, we've been applying them for many years in many different countries and many different tech companies. I sort of wanted to give a brief overview just for those out there who aren't familiar with these types of obfuscation techniques, just kind of talk to you a little bit about what reverse engineers can do and how we sort of prevent them from making their jobs easy, I guess, is what we're trying to do. So basically the idea is that reverse engineers are typically looking to understand the logic of your code, right? They're going to open it up in some kind of disassembly tool. They might have IDA Pro or something similar for mobile applications. And they're trying to understand the logic of your code. It builds a nice hierarchical flow chart for them to understand. They can use that to either snip out sections of interest to them, or maybe they can jump over security checks, license checks, that kind of thing. So typically what we're trying to do is, at least in enterprise code, what we're generally trying to do is remove all of that logic from your code, right? We're trying to turn it into some kind of state machine that makes it very difficult for people to understand the order of execution of your program, right? So it makes it very hard for a reverse engineer to determine what chunk of your code comes before what other chunk. That way they can't do things like branch jamming attacks. They can't find sort of that point of security critical functions, right? But that's sort of one avenue that reverse engineers typically take. They love to have some kind of static understanding of what your code is trying to do. They'll also often try to step through your code to find interesting data values, right? So they're looking for constants or some sort of magic number that will allow them to turn themselves from maybe a guest user into an admin user. Maybe they're trying to check to see if there's a constant that allows them to put a program into a first provisioning mode or something like that. And we want to be able to protect those values as well. So we've developed a number of tools and techniques that allow us to mask these important values in your code and then maintain those masks throughout the entire execution, right? So those are just a couple of the types of protection technologies that we add to your code. We also generally add things that are often referred to as sort of RASP technologies, some kind of runtime protection for your code, right? Trying to make sure that nobody's going to be able to attach a debugger to your code so that they can step through it line by line. Trying to make sure that nobody's been able to take your code and move it to somebody else's machine. So we try to give your device a unique fingerprint, try to enable some sort of node locking technology. Those are the types of things that we've been doing for decades, right? And typically it's relatively complex. Even with the tools that we developed, it takes somebody like me or my colleagues to go out on site, make use of the tools in the way they're supposed to be used to make sure that the protection is applied where it needs to be applied, right? And so sort of when I heard about this new branch off into the mobile world where it would no longer require somebody like me to actually make use of the tool and apply it in the proper way, I was really interested, and I started sort of talking it up to a number of different customers and to a number of different colleagues as well. So with that in mind, I kind of got a couple of questions for Catherine and Hamad here, from feedback from people in various roles that I've spoken with about your technology, some of the questions that they had around it. If it's all right with you guys, I'd love to just run through them and get a sense of how you improve the lives of all the people in sort of the software development value chain. How's that sound?
Sounds good, yeah.
All right, great. So to start off with, one of the people I run into all the time as I'm doing these projects on site is project managers, right? Scrum masters, guys who are concerned about user story throughput. They care about deadlines. I'm sure there's some of you in the audience. I love you guys. You all are great hype men. It's fantastic working with you, but you always ask me the same question. And the first question, I'm sure some of you have it right now, is this going to affect my continuous improvement, continuous deployment model, continuous integration model? Is my CI/CD system going to break because I'm making use of this new tool? So Catherine, can you answer that for us? Is there a way to integrate this in an automated fashion with somebody's whole build chain?
Of course there is. Yeah, our developer team would have killed me if I'd suggested a product that couldn't be nicely integrated into a CI/CD system. And I even think we may have a demo. Is that right, Hamad?
That is correct. So
fantastic.
Yeah, as you beautifully described, that there is a very nice way of integrating this into an existing CI/CD pipeline. So I get to wear my developer hat right now and take off my product owner hat and show you a little somewhat complex app that we have, and I'm going to show you how we would be able to integrate this into an existing CI/CD pipeline. So as you can see, okay. I have my GitLab, I have my app, and I'm going to run my pipeline here. I was developing a feature. The feature is now complete, and I want to see how my app gets built, tested, and in this case, it also protected. So while that is happening, I will show you a bit and talk a bit about what you see on the screen right now.
Sure.
What's on the left might be something people, especially developers, are quite familiar with. Is a regular CI/CD pipeline, and there are different stages in our in the pipeline. In this case, you have your build step, then you have your testing step. But you will see that now we also have a protection step. This is hardly 10 lines of code in my YML file that will quite easily submit a built artifact, in this case, an APK, to the backend trusted software service. The app will get protected. Of course, you might want to run some more tests after that, and then you can publish it. And on the right here is our web UI. And as you might be able to see that the app that was just built got submitted and has started being protected. To talk a bit more about the web UI as our app gets protected, there is definitely other ways to protect the app, not just CI/CD pipelines. So in this case, if you had an APK and you wanted to just drag and drop and use our web UI, for whatever reason you're a web UI person, right? You can easily change our settings, enable or disable whatever kind of protections you want in your app, and then just simply hit protect. At the same time, there are different aspects of the web UI that developers might find useful. This is probably one of the most interesting one right now, since this is how you would generate an API key and connect your CI/CD pipeline into our protection backend. And while this is getting protected, there's other documentation that you can read. You can look at our API and yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Ahmad. That's really great insight. And honestly, I really appreciate the fact that you guys have actually thought about how people are using the tool, right? Given people options. I'm sure there's lots of mobile app developers out there that appreciate the opportunity to just drag and drop an application into a web UI, right? If it's maybe they're just messing around with the tool for the first time, they don't want to have to hook up a whole pipeline to it. Just the ability to drag and drop is always exciting for, you know, getting something up and running quickly out of the box kind of thing. So that's really great to see. The other nice thing, and again, this is a question I get asked a lot by sort of the more project managery folks out there, is they're often very concerned again about timelines. They're always on a tight timeline. They're always concerned about sort of user story throughput, and they typically come and talk to me about, hey, is there some sort of tool, the tools that you guys are offering, can we use that as a way to sort of avoid bottlenecks around maybe sort of our security conscious engineers, right? There's a huge talent shortage right now for security engineers out there. Most companies maybe have one guy in-house that really knows his stuff around secure code. And, you know, they're the ones who are relied on for doing secure code reviews and for doing secure design, and they've got a lot on their plate. It ends up being a huge bottleneck in the pipeline. Do you guys see trusted software as a way of maybe alleviating some of these problems that people are having around these talent shortages?
Yeah, absolutely, Andrew. I think you know what you're describing. You know, in our experience working with mobile app developers, the pressure can really be on. You know, if you've got a field issue and if you need to get something out quickly, you don't want to be doing anything slow that was going to slow you down or anything complicated. You know, people, when they are, you know, getting negative reviews in the App Store, or when they're getting pressure from other people in the organization to get stuff, you know, fixed because there's an issue in some particular device in some particular, you know, region in the world that they need to address quickly. You know, you really want a security solution that doesn't require a lot of time to integrate, that doesn't require a lot of time to review, and certainly doesn't, you know, slow you down. So, you know, we certainly see this model as being really helpful because it's just a final build step, and it doesn't actually take human time. It just needs compute time, and you're ready to go. You have whatever fix you need to release, whatever patch you need to do, and all the security that you need with low additional cost.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's fantastic. It will definitely brighten a lot of project managers' days in the future. I expect there's going to be a lot of smiles on those in those Scrum meetings. But we've talked a little bit about Scrum Masters and how they can kind of benefit from something like this, how happy this makes them. But I mean, my heart has always been with the developers out there, right? I mean, for me, I always feel sorry for developers who have really strict secure coding guidelines imposed on them by their companies that have to do 10 hours of secure design review for every 1 hour of feature work. It's an absolute nightmare out there for some of them, who I really feel for, because you get into this business because you like building cool tech, you like building cool features, you like implementing interesting UI or human computer interactions, things like that. You don't want to be spending 90% of your time keeping up to date on the latest threats or the latest attack models. Have you guys heard from developers at all that are just sort of throwing flowers at your feet, saying thank you for bringing job satisfaction back?
Well, yeah, and I think it comes in different ways. I mean, I think you're describing one situation where you have a team of developers developing an app for a company, but often it's contractors. Some of the companies we deal with are building devices that need a companion app, and they're contracting out the app development. And these app developers are experts, at user experience, at layouts, at visual impression that their apps make, and they're not super experienced with security. It's a lot to go to them and say, oh, by the way, could you just dust some security on there, while you're building these wonderful apps? It's not a reasonable expectation. It's not reasonable to expect people who are staying on top of all the latest frameworks and design ideas to also stay on top of all the latest roots and jailbreaks. Last year alone, I think there were over 20 updates to check rain and uncover jailbreaks. This is a lot to stay on top of. This is a full-time job. So when we're able to come to the companies and say, build your apps the way you want to, spend all your time and energy on the stuff that you care about, and we will provide the security behind it, through these interfaces, that's a real value. And it, as you say, it allows people to disengage from the concerns about security or about what sort of threats they might be introducing into the app, and allow them to focus on the stuff they really want to be focusing on.
So is the idea that if a new threat is announced, if a new way of jailbreaking an iPhone is detected or something like that, all people would have to do is come on here and hit reprotect, and they'll be able to launch the app, and they don't even have to worry about any new threats that have been announced? Is that sort of what you guys are going for?
Yeah, that's our idea. We're going to stay on top of these things for you, so you don't have to.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, it's fantastic. It's definitely, I mean, I talked about, project managers being happy, but honestly, I care far more about making developers happy. So if I can do anything that's going to get them time in their day back to actually work on the features they want to work on, to me, I think that's, you're doing the Lord's work here, guys. Speaking of, it looks like maybe the pipeline has finished, Hamad. Do you want to talk us through sort of the end result a little bit?
Sure, yeah. So we can start getting into and showing some of the things that we are actually talking about, and Catherine sort of touched a bit about. So in this case, we will go and check to see that if our app has been protected and published. So yeah, as you can see, you saw the entire pipeline go through, and the app did get protected. But what happened there, right? What happened behind the covers? So you briefly touched a bit on RASP and jailbreak and root detection. So it just happened that during the protection, we did automatically inject root detection checks to the app.
Okay.
And to demonstrate that, I have a very simple rooted device here. Again, this is mostly Android specific, but we do the exact same things for jailbreak detection in iOS apps. So as you can see, we have the unprotected app and then the protected app. And if I quickly try to load the unprotected app, you will see that it gets loaded, it gets launched, and nothing really happens, even though the device is rooted. So you can go, you can play the game. I'm not that good at it, but then I'm going to try the exact same thing with a protected artifact, which is has been protected by trusted software. It has had root detection checks inserted into it, and in this case, we've chosen to just show a message and not do any real action, but it's really up to the app developer to maybe add some sort of detection response.
Right.
So as you can see, we detected that this device is rooted. We don't do anything much about it right now, but the possibilities are there to do anything.
Yeah, that's very cool. I mean, it's obviously something people are going to want to be doing in their games of Reversi and Othello. You want to make sure that you're running on a very trusted device, because there's serious money in the world championship of Reversi, right? So so this is a really cool demo. I really appreciate it. I realized I skated over our first polling question at the start of that. I meant to put a shout out there. So I think Mike's going to ask a polling question to the audience. Now you guys have a little bit more context around the types of things that we're talking about. But Mike, if you want to go ahead and do that first quick poll, I'd love to hear the answers.
All right, I was wondering, but yes, here we go.
Mm-hmm.
Our first poll is, how do you manage your mobile app security? Please select 1. I have a third-party solution. I protect my app in-house. I am looking for a solution. Finally, I don't need app security. With that, we're going to give everybody about 20 seconds or so to give us an answer and keep chatting along here. And maybe I'll say a little prayer since we're all doing the Lord's work, which I thought was a great comment. And and let's jump into the results. All right, and our results are, we have at the top, I am looking for a solution, 35%, followed by I have a third-party solution at 30%. I protect my app in-house, 25%, and I need app security, 10%. And with that, I'm going to hand it back to you guys.
That's very interesting. I love seeing results like that. I always wonder about the people who are doing app security in-house. How much time they spend on it versus what they get out of it. These are the people that I really feel like we could potentially have the most help for, because a lot of people are doing this just because they don't know there's an easier way, right? I mean, they're doing it because they know it's a necessity, and they think they have to roll their own stuff. So you guys out there, the 25% of you that have to do this work yourself, congratulations on going your own for this long. But hey, I mean, there's people out there who can help, and we've got 2 of them on the call right here. So so that's great to see. All right. So yeah, thanks for answering the polling questions. I think there's a couple more of them coming up. So stick on and answer those ones. We love hearing honest feedback. So moving on to one of the other sort of types of roles that I encounter all the time when I'm out on customer sites doing these sort of security challenges. One of the guys that I always come into contact with are sort of the engineering manager types. So these are people who sort of have, P&L on their dockets. They're the ones who are making hiring decisions, and they're the ones who are feeling the real crunch here when it comes to sort of the talent drought around security engineers. And they ask for a lot of opinions from me about how to hire security conscious engineers. They talk a lot about what sort of budget they can expect to be paying these guys. And to be honest, it's high. I mean, if you're going to get the best in the business, it really does cost a lot of money right now to hire security conscious engineers. Do you guys see TS as a way of sort of alleviating the stress on the pocketbook of CTOs and engineering managers, giving them a chance of just having the peace of mind that even if they hire sort of everyday run-of-the-mill engineers, they've got something watching their back now, right? They have something with intelligence built into it that's going to be able to sort of raise the bar of security in any applications they release. Can you talk a little bit about how you see this positioned against just having to hire a ton of security conscious engineers?
Yeah, sure. I can handle that one, and that's kind of an interesting thing because we see a couple of things, right? We see companies that are struggling to decide that they're going to spend the money on someone with security expertise, or they're going to train, or they're going to make that commitment, that investment in terms of money or time to bring up a team who can do these sorts of things. And in that case, it's kind of an obvious choice. If you can, get the benefit of, other people's expertise, and if you can do it at a reasonable cost and it's reasonably easy, it's a no-brainer. There's kind of another angle to that too, because we also, as you know, deal with some really large companies that do have security teams in-house. And you're often dealing with someone like a security architect, and they have a different challenge, right? They really understand the threats. They really understand what needs to be done, but they don't have time to educate every team within the company, and especially in large companies. They don't have time to make sure, that's their mandate. Their mandate is security. They're trying to make recommendations that, up the security bar within the company, but it's a tall order. And so even speaking to security experts, sometimes, they can see the appeal of this as well, that even though they have the knowledge themselves, this is the way that everybody can use it. This is the way that large groups of developers or distributed groups of developers can all get the benefit of security knowledge without the investment.
Yeah, and honestly, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, educational initiatives are one of the big things that I've been doing over here since I moved. It's something that we are continuously pushing in the industry right now because, so many people coming out of school don't get a lot of security information. They're sort of taught that compilers operate as magic devices that turn your code into black boxes. That hasn't been true for a long time, but people still believe it. I think it's just wishful thinking for the most part, but it's one of those things where anytime we can have a chance of putting out some more education, there's always a good return on that for everybody, right? The whole industry. So with that in mind, I mean, I'd love to see sort of what types of vulnerabilities you guys are defending against. If you have some sort of maybe a demo of maybe an attack that you could levy against a mobile app, how this kind of thing would prevent those types of attacks, that would be, I think that would really raise the education of everybody else in the room right now, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what I have. It's funny you mentioned.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, that's exactly what I have. And this is actually my favorite part because I get to be a hacker. And then kind of demonstrate the kind of attacks people who have malicious intent do against your app. So we'll just take the apps that we just protected, and I'm going to copy it over locally, where I have developed a quick patch that will do something to this app. Instead of telling you what it does, I'm just going to show you. So let me just run my patch.
Okay, so you're actually attacking the app at this point. That's the idea.
I am.
Gotcha.
So the idea really is, as soon as I get that going, to attack the app, and it will follow a few simple steps. Well, I wouldn't say simple, but might be something people on the webinar are somewhat familiar with. So the very first step is you're disassembling the app. For Android APKs, it's actually a fairly simple task to do with a lot of free open source tools available. And what this will do is take the code that's in your app, which has been compiled or assembled, and basically present to me, the hacker, in a very somewhat human readable form. And this is what normally is the first step for a hacker to reverse engineer application. They will try to disassemble them and try to understand and reverse engineer what is happening in your app. I'm using a fairly common tool called the APK tool, which will present the app in something called Smalley, which is effectively just a text representation of what's in your app. So when it's done, you will see that we generated a disassembly here, and in the next stage, I'm going to patch it, and then finally, after I'm done patching it, I will reassemble and put it back together. So the 3 stages: break it down, disassemble, understand, and then patch it and put it back together. So as this is all happening live, you can see that it's taking time, and so it will put the patched Dex or Java or your source code back into the APK, and then I'm going to again try to load this APK into an actual device and show you how I patched it. In this case, as you saw, this was a game, so a natural patch for the game would be to somehow cheat or get some sort of advantage over others. But a lot of common patching techniques are where you can remove some sort of advertisements from your app, or add some other malicious code to your app instead of changing it, so that whenever it gets executed, your code gets executed. So as you can see, the possibilities are endless. So this is done now, and you can see that I have a patched app ready to be deployed. So without further ado, I'm going to load that onto a non-rooted device this time around, because and show you what this does.
Okay.
So
Yep.
Device. Well, maybe I'll go back to my other device and load my application that I've just patched. It will get installed, launched. But this time around, when I play the app, well, black always wins. It doesn't matter how many times you. So as you can see, the possibilities are fairly endless of what you can do. But again, the question that you really asked me is what has happened in the background that we can protect against. So instead of trying to patch the protected app, I'll just show you how I constructed this patch. Gotcha. This is the Smalley that I was just talking about. This has taken a pre-compiled application and put it into a more human readable form. And as you can see, it's fairly understandable. The format itself is very well documented, so even if you're not familiar with it, you can easily learn what each of these lines does. The patch on the right, as you can see, it's hardly 10 lines that I've changed to get the kind of functionality that I just showed you. Now I'm going to show you how it looks in the protected app. It's, as you can see, it's the exact same Java class on the left. But on the right, there isn't much you can do with this app now. A lot of the functions that we've deemed to be critical, or our machine learning algorithms have deemed to be critical security bias, have been converted to native, and then we've applied our data protections to that code. Stuff that we are very good at doing, stuff we've been doing for decades, as you mentioned. This kind of shows you the kind of protections that we can do.
Gotcha. Yeah. So it's you're managing to protect the Java side by putting more of the code on the native side, right? I mean, Java is notorious for being inherently difficult to protect because people can just snoop in the JVM, right? I mean, it's pretty easy to see what any type of Java code is actually doing. So moving as much code as possible into the native realm makes a lot of sense. And of course, as you mentioned, makes it really easy for us to then apply all the protections that we usually apply to enterprise code. I mean, it's a very smart approach. Clearly, it foils these nefarious hackers that are trying to constantly win games of Othello and Reversi. So, I mean, that's definitely the guys that we want to be making their lives difficult, because, man.
Well, perhaps not, but
yeah.
but I think this is a really good example, because we do talk to a lot of app developers who love Java. They love to code in Java. They're really happy with it. They like, or Kotlin, or any of these languages. And maybe they are a little bit less secure than native code, but this technique allows them to code in the language that they prefer and get the benefit of the kinds of protections that we can apply to C code, for example.
Right. Yeah, which sort of brings me to my next question for you, Catherine. I mean, this seems like it's a fantastic solution for mobile devices, for mobile applications. Is there an idea of what the future holds for trusted software as far as platforms go? Right now, it looks like it's protecting mostly Java, but you guys also protect maybe stuff on iOS, I assume, and then beyond. What's the plan?
Yeah. So of course, we do have full support for, if you're writing your apps in Objective-C or Swift or anything that you might be using on iOS. But that does leave a little gap. Yes, someone we were talking to recently pointed out it's great to protect mobile, but what about protecting web? It's kind of a three-pronged. Right. If you have a mobile app, if you have an iOS app and an Android app, what are you going to do for the web app? So coming soon, we are working on JavaScript protections, which will not only provide security to web apps, but also the JavaScript-based app development frameworks like React Native. So we're really excited about a big development for us next year.
Wow. Yeah. And is the plan to also eventually put my job at risk and move towards enterprise applications through the same kind of idea? I mean, if you can replace me with ML, that's certainly saves our company a lot of money. So
yeah. I mean, I think it's a journey for sure. But we didn't call this product Trusted Apps. We called it Trusted Software because we have big ambitions. Yeah. I think we really see a market for people who need help or would rather be doing something else, as you pointed out, who could benefit from us making the security problems go away.
Sure. Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. I love seeing you guys. I love hearing about the new technology you guys are developing, because honestly, this is far more exciting than what I get to do on a regular basis, which is all of the annoying security grunt work that we are trying to automate as much as possible. So I really appreciate it. I am conscious of time. I do know we do have a couple of other polling questions from Mike. Mike, do you want to throw out
something before you do that?
Of course, Catherine, by all means.
Yeah, so with as you pointed out, we've thought a bit about how developers work with the CI/CD integrations and sort of the ease of use that we've built into this product. But we've also thought a little bit about the security engineers on the product side. We're aware that people, especially people with a security bent like you, Andrew, aren't going to take us at our word. They want to see what we can do. And so, we've decided, taken the choice that we want to make evaluations free for everybody. So if you are interested in this product, but you're not really sure, or you want to test it out and see if it's providing the kind of security you expect, you know, we're encouraging people like you, Andrew, to sign up for a free trial and give it a go and see what you think.
All right, I'm in. I've just written a great Reversi app, so I'm hoping that you guys will be able to protect it before I release it and make the big money. No, that's fantastic. I mean, honestly, anytime I get to test a tool out before I actually have to buy it, I'm thrilled. So if I have the chance to mess around with software protection, that would help me out. That would help me out a great deal. So yeah, and we can certainly, I assume they email you, Catherine, directly to set up a free trial, or is it reach out to, what is it, sales@erdeto.com?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Sure, you can reach out to me, but I think some of that information will be available to people
Yeah,
as
it's on the
part of,
website.
on the landing page for this webinar.
Yeah. Fantastic. So yeah, I do want to leave time for questions from the audience as well. So I think, Mike, if you want to throw out a couple of those polling questions, we can talk a little bit about what the results are afterwards, and then we can open it up to Q&A from the floor.
All right, let's go open up some of these polling questions while Hamad is busy training artificial Andrew how to open the pod security door, right? What types of apps are you looking to protect? Please select one: native mobile apps, web or hybrid apps, or A and B. We'll give everybody about 20 seconds or so to answer that, and we'll see how we do here. But I think I have a sense of maybe where this answer is going to be, but you never know. All right, maybe we can show folks the results starting now. All right, and our answers are, there we go, A and B, 45%, followed by native mobile apps at 32%, and then web or hybrid apps at 23%. Back to you guys, and what do you guys think of this?
I'm actually a little surprised.
Catherine, yeah.
I would have thought there'd be more answering A and B, but that's interesting.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, I think you know, it makes sense. It's one of those things where, you know, sometimes you start out developing just the native side with a plan to move towards adding in web or hybrid functionality later on. So it could just be a product of people being early on in their app development or in the audience right now. That's when you tend to think about security anyway.
All right, do you guys want to move to the second poll now, or where do you want to go?
Sure, yeah, throw up that last poll.
All right, we're on to our third and final poll here. What are your main pain points when it comes to application security? Please select one: talent acquisition struggles, time and resources, budget, and high turnover. This is a tough one for sure. All right, we'll give everybody about 20 seconds or so to think through their answers. I'm pretty sure everybody has multiple pain points, but let's get to the one that bothers you the most. All right, folks, can we perhaps get to our results? And here we are. And the top one is budget, followed by time and resources. Interestingly enough, high turnover and talent acquisition struggles are fairly low. Folks, what do you make of that?
Yeah, again, you know, budget is often the thing you'll notice first, right? I mean, typically, if you have enough budget, you can solve any other problem, right? If you've got enough money, you can certainly solve talent acquisition problems. But the first thing you're going to hit is, yeah, you're running up against that pocketbook problem. And that can definitely be the case. It's certainly what we see in the enterprise world as well, is that sometimes the budget, especially around security, people just don't see that there's a huge ROI on every dollar you spend towards security, right? I mean, at the end of the day, if you lose your intellectual property, if your app gets cracked, if you're, you know, disseminated on the dark web, you've lost every cent you've put into developing that interesting application. So to me, budget is always the first hurdle to overcome, but it's also sort of the easiest one to explain to people how important every dollar you spend on security is.
All right, awesome. Do you guys want to jump into Q&A, or how do you want to go?
Sure, yeah. If we want to open it up to the floor for any questions, I mean, I'm not sure how many people attended the first webinar, so there might be questions around what we talked about there as well, which is sort of the protection technologies that we're using here, the ML. But by all means, ask away. We're here for you guys. So like I say, education first and foremost.
All right, I draw everybody's attention to the buttons that you can use to ask your questions, but our first question is a long one, so here we go. I can see and have had, or how tamper resistance and software security injection after development could impact app function. Have you encountered your post-development tools degrading or breaking proper app function, timing et al., and how do you deal with this? Is it left as an experiment for the end user to work out, or is there some other way around these problems?
Would you like me to answer that, Andrew? You want to take a crack at it?
Yeah, you go ahead, Catherine. I'll tack on a couple of interesting tidbits at the end.
Okay, so I think you know, in what we showed, we didn't talk a lot about what we do behind the scenes, and I think one of the things that's really important to understand is that our security is based on a 20-year-old technology that has millions of test cases. So I can tell you with 100% certainty, we do not introduce bugs. So you will not find that because you protected your code with our tool that we have introduced any sort of, you know, error that is timing dependent or something like that. Now, could it change the timing of the app? Maybe slightly. Maybe in some cases. So if you have a timing error or something, you know, some sort of problem in your app, it might reveal it. But typically, you know, we're not looking at, I can say categorically, we're not going to introduce timing bugs. There's nothing new that will be introduced by our app, by our technology. And you know, the impact of the tool is not going to be, you know, the sort of thing that users are going to perceive or are going to impact the way a user engages with the application.
Yeah, Catherine's exactly right. I mean, the underlying tool that, you know, I worked on, that this new technology makes use of, like she says, is tested to death on every release. And we test it very much the same way that modern compilers are tested. So you have to throw millions and millions and millions of different applications at the tool and then test for functional equivalence at the end result, right? So we make use of the same test suite that Clang makes use of. We make use of the same test suite that GCC makes use of. And that's because, look, if you guys are trusting your compilers, we want to have that same level of trust in our tool, right? It has to guarantee functional equivalence. Now, what Catherine said is true. If you have race conditions in your code, that's bad coding practice. You guys, I know you guys out there don't have any race conditions in your code. You guys always make sure to initialize memory before you're actually testing it. Those are important coding practices that all good engineers should know, right? And what you will notice is that our tool will reveal those to you in due course, right? So often our tool will identify that, hey, this variable hasn't been properly initialized. That's going to cause a problem when we start applying our data protections to it. So please have a look and see if this is really what you intended. But yeah, every issue we've run into has always been there in the unprotected code. It just really, it's a tool to help debug as well as protect your code at this point.
All right, our next question goes to issues relating to Apple and the Apple Store. Is the tamper-resistant tool can it help qualify an app for the store, both for iOS and for tablet and phone? And which version of iOS are you planning to support?
I love this question. I think Apple should use us to help qualify apps. That would be great. I think if you want to suggest that to Apple, that would be a great idea. But no, we don't actually have a relationship with any of the app stores. And you know, what we're doing, of course, is accepted by the app stores. This is well tested. You know, if you apply our protections to your app, you know, that's not going to trigger any warnings or any concerns from Apple, but it doesn't help you with the approval process in any way, I'm afraid. At this point, if you guys want to lobby Apple and say this would be a great addition to your App Store submission process, I'm in. Go ahead, please do it.
All right, I think
Yeah,
I
I mean,
heard.
oh, sorry, Mike. Just to tack on the end, one of the interesting is that we actually operate on the bit code that you're actually shipping to the App Store, to the Apple App Store. So it was designed in mind to be deployed by Apple as a solution on their end that should just be automatically protecting every app that's uploaded to the App Store, right? I mean, we want to make sure that we're raising the bar across the world for app security, right? We just want to make it so that we can eliminate the most common vulnerabilities in all apps. That's what we have to do. We have to, lobby Apple.
And as to versions, I think Hamad probably remembers more quickly than me, but we typically support the previous 2. So that would be, yeah.
So 14 just came out, as people know, and the one before that would be 13. Yeah.
All right, I think I heard that a petition will be starting soon, but let's go to the next question. You guys talked a little bit about this, but I think one of our attendees wants to know specifically, do you protect Java applications?
Yes, that's an easy one. And Kotlin.
All right.
Yeah,
And
as we say, we do it by actually converting some of the Java code into native code and then applying the techniques that we have been using for decades on that code. So we don't do it with superficial protections that the JVM is going to reveal anyway. We do it the way you're supposed to do it, by recoding in C.
Yeah, maybe it's worth. This is how maybe this is a bit of an Erdetoism. When people from Erdeto say native code, we mean code that exists in a shared object that is invoked over a JNI interface. I think some app developers, use the word native to mean the languages that the platform supports natively. So some people would talk about Java as native code for Android. Yeah. What we mean specifically is we take that Java code and convert it into something in a shared object that is invoked over a JNI interface, if that helps.
right.
Or makes things more confusing, I don't know.
All right, cool. Our next question goes to deployment. And the question is, I guess folks want to know how deployment happens. And I think they're assuming your tools or maybe where you fit inside that process, but I think you should feel free to expand.
I can't see the question, but I think the thrust of it is, how does this fit into the deployment of the app to the App Store? Is that how I should understand it?
Yeah, I think it's a pretty open-ended question. So I think people want to know, if I take your tool and I put it in my tool chain, what happens from there, or some description thereof.
Sure. Hamad, do you wanna go over that one again?
Yeah, so as I demonstrated, and we talked a bit about that as well, we work directly on your build artifacts. We do not require source specifically to protect this. So for Android, if you have APKs or app bundles, the new sort of format Google is now accepting, we will protect that. So it in your, for example, your CI/CD pipeline, it would be the step before you publish it to your to the App Store. Of course, you would have to re-sign it or let Google or Apple sign for you, whatever you choose. But yeah, that would be the point at which we would sort of fit into your existing pipeline. And then for iOS, we work on XC archives. Again, for iOS developers, it's a very familiar archiving format that is used to submit and publish applications to the App Store.
Okay, we have a follow-up question on Java. Which JVM will you verify, and does that include Azul Systems Inc.'s edition, or how many will you do?
So, yeah, I don't know if I'm completely understanding the question, but I'll give it a shot. So when it comes to Java right now and Kotlin, as we've demonstrated, we work on the APK and app bundles. And if you're somewhat familiar with Android, it's your Java gets packaged into a format called DEX, and we fully support DEX format up to, I think, version 39 was the last one. We work on APKs and AABs and DEX files within them, not the source.
I think perhaps the question was about testing, though. So I think, we've talked about Java protection, and I want to be clear that we're talking about Java protection in the context of Android. So we test against different versions of the Android VM, but there are, of course, Java VMs out there designed for other environments, for desktop or enterprise, and that's not what this solution does yet. Of course, as I said, our ambitions are big. But for now, it's mobile, Java for mobile, Java for Android that we're targeting. So it's those VMs.
All right, and then we have one question that's non-technical, but I guess you guys are not a household word yet. So people want to know a little bit about who is Erdeto and where did you guys come from?
You want to do that one, Android? Andrew? Yeah.
Oh, fun. Yeah, sure. Erdeto. Wow. Erdeto. So Erdeto, for those who don't know, has been around for 51 years as sort of a media and digital rights protection company. So based over here in Amsterdam with me, there was an engineer that founded the company. So the name Irdeto, IR is actually the Dutch word for engineer. So it's the Dutch short form for engineer is IR. So, and his name was Detto, or it's a combination of his name. So he founded a company to protect digital rights. So the idea that broadcasters should be able to send their content out and be confident that it's only being watched by people who have paid for their content, right? About 12 years ago, Erdeto acquired a Canadian company, which is the one that sort of Catherine and I and Hamad all work for, called Cloakware. You can see my Cloakware shirt here. Cloakware specialized in protecting software that's run in hostile environments. So Erdeto was making use of Cloakware technology already to protect their DRM solutions, right? To ensure that nobody's able to reverse engineer and get around their digital rights. But it's software like any other software. So Cloakware technology can be used to protect any software in any hostile environment. And these days, what environment isn't a hostile environment, right? Everything's connected, everything's up there for reverse engineers to be able to get access to. So more than any time in the past, we need companies like Cloakware that specify or that specialize in protecting these valuable intellectual properties from people being able to reverse engineer them. But yeah, if you want to go to Erdeto.com, you'll see plenty more about our history. It's a long and storied history. I love the company, so I'm always happy to talk about it.
All right, guys, great. We've come to the end of our event. Our winners for the card are Debbie F, Jerry P, Ron K, Dave P. Check your emails. Make sure it doesn't get lost in your spam filters. I want to thank our panelists today, Andrew, Catherine, Hamad, for sharing your expertise, and we wish you all secure mobile computing in 2021.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.